I don't know how many of you have ever had this happen. In front of you, there's a dish, a really nice dish, and on the side it have a dessert mango. But the dish, oh my goodness, you cut into, you take a spoon, and now you put it into your mouth, and as you're eating it, and then all of a sudden, and it's a hair. Oh, it just spoils the whole meal. Can I say this? Just like that one little hair spoils the meal, in the same way, when it comes to truth, politics spoils the meal. And when I look at this world, and some of you probably have been here long enough, this is one of those topics I just don't like. Because even when you're trying to teach the truth of God's word, because there's a firestorm out there, if you touch a topic and you're trying to reveal truth, what happens? Oh, whose side are you on? What are you trying to say? Listen, what I'm going to attempt to do tonight is, according to my the topic, find the truth beneath the politics. In other words, we're going to remove the politics and see what the truth is so that we can make a right judgment. Look with me, 2 Samuel chapter 20. And there happened to be there a rebel whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, Benjamite. And he blew a trumpet and said, "We have no share in David, nor do we have the inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tent, O Israel." So every man of Israel deserted David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri, but the men of Judah from the Jordan as far as Jerusalem remained loyal to the kingdom. Now, last week, as Hoover was sharing, coming to the end of the chapter, David, of course, came back to Jerusalem, but they started to fight. The northern tribes are fighting for right to David. They're saying, Judah, why is it that you have the right to David? We have this equal amount of share. And so they're fighting for King David. Now, we see here in this chapter, in chapter 20, there's this rebel. And he comes now and he says, forget David. We have no share in David. We need to go back to the north. We don't need David. Now, keep in mind, Absalom, David's son, is dead. He, of course, betrayed his own father and took the kingdom from him. And now, David has this political pressure. He has this guy, Sheba, again, saying, we don't need David. We don't have any rights with him. We want, we need to just go and do our own thing. And they left him, and we see here that Judah, where David, the tribe that David came from, they stayed loyal to him. Now, politicians are great in using deception to gain power. There's just saying, how can you tell if a politician is lying? His lips are moving. But why do we listen to them anyway? We keep going back. Say, let me see if I can, not be deceived. Sheba said something, I want you to see this, that was true, but it was a twist in it. He was being a politician. He was saying something that was absolutely true. He said that David, we don't have any rights to David. In other words, David came from the tribe of Judah. Is that not a true statement? So what's wrong with that? Well, think about it. David, the twist is this, that he used the truth to say that David is not one of us by doing what? Well, he's playing political identity, right? Politics. Identity politics. He is trying to now separate and say, well, they're a different tribe. They're not one of us. Now, when you consider he's twisting this truth, again, he's saying the truth, but he's doing a twist to divide people. You know, probably in this past year, last year, you probably heard those words, malinformation and disinformation and misinformation. And all this information that's out there, but how do we know what is true? And it's getting worse, especially with AI now. But when I just define that word malinformation, again, it speaks so much of what's going on. Again, if you watch what happened this last week or whatever in Minneapolis with the shooting of this young woman, and everyone is watching the same movie and coming with a different conclusion. Why is that? Listen, malinformation. Listen to what malinformation is. It's twisting the truth. They're telling you the truth. This is what it is, but they're doing a spin on it so that you could see it the way that they want you to see it. You see, malinformation is different from disinformation. Disinformation is just making up a lie. If you consider it this way, if you have a plate, again, a steak dinner, malinformation is you have a steak, but you cover it with some A1 sauce and a little poison, right? It's the truth, but it have a little poison mixed into it. Disinformation is clone meat. It's a steak, but it's not real. You know, it was manufactured. But then we also have misinformation. And misinformation is the person that goes online and watch the malinformation or the disinformation. They eat some of it and they share it with their friends. And we can get caught up with it so easily if we're not careful. Now, I want you to see, look at verse 3. We'll come back to this guy, Sheba. But look at verse 3. It says, "Now David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them in seclusion and supported them, but did not go into them. So they were shut up to the day of their death, living in widowhood." I put in my title for this little section, Political Pawns. These women were political pawns. If you remember, David had 8 wives and 10 concubines. When he left with his wives, he left the concubines behind. But what is the purpose of a king or anyone having so many wives and so many women in his life? Well, for one, I think we talked about this before, it's for security. You see, every woman that David marries, every concubine that he has, it's for security, because every son that gives birth to these women, these women give birth to, they are bringing security to David's throne. If someone comes in and kills him and kills some of his sons, there's a chance that one of them will survive and be able to sit on his throne. So he's trying to provide for himself security, but also political alliance. You see, when David will meet some head of a tribe, what he will do is marry their daughter, take their daughter, and so now there's this alliance because, hey, your daughter is with me, you won't attack me, right? So there's this alliance that's being built. So David had all these women, but when he was attacked by his son, he left these 10 behind. And what happened? Remember, his son, he slept with them. It was a political move. He's like, I got the kingdom and I got your women. And so these women, again, they're being abused. They don't really care about them. They're just using them for their own political gain. You see, that's what I see people, politicians doing to people today. They will come and they will sweet talk you. They will invite you over. They will tell you all of the things that you want to hear. And when they get what they need, they push you to the side. I mean, think about how sad this is, that these women were once in David's household, and now he has put them someplace so that no one could marry them, because, again, that would be a political move. If anyone married them and have a child with them, they will have stake to David's throne. And so therefore, David said, you know what? Stay by yourself till you die. How sad is that? How selfish is that? Now, I believe some of you probably have heard this, and there's arguments over this, but hear my heart on this. I really believe there should be a separation of church and state. Separation of church and state, that the state should not have influence over the church. It doesn't say that the church shouldn't have influence over the state. See, we have to be careful that we don't allow the politicians to come and influence us. We should be the one that influence the politicians, I should say. I believe that's why Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar and give to God what is God. I love what he did with the coin. He said, whose inscription is this? Whose face is on the coin? Caesar, they said. He said, good, give to Caesar what is Caesar. But give to God what is God. What is God's? Let me ask you the question, whose inscription is on you? You're made in the image of God. Give to Caesar what is Caesar, but man, let's give to God what is God. Now, look at verse 4. I want to title this section here, Political Protest. Look at verse 4. And the king said to Amasa, assemble the men of Judah for me within 3 days, and be present here yourself. So Amasa went to assemble the men of Judah, but he delayed longer than the set time which David had appointed him. Now, if you consider who is Amasa, Amasa is David's nephew. Remember when Absalom overtook the kingdom, who did he put in charge of his army? Amasa. So Amasa and Absalom, they're cousins. Again, David is his uncle. And who was in charge of David's forces, his troops, before he put Amasa there? It was Joab. So Joab and Amasa, they are cousins. But when Absalom died, David put Amasa over his troops, again, a political move, hoping that he will become now loyal to David. And when he did that, of course, he put Absalom on the side because, again, part of it is because Joab killed Absalom, right? And so David was saying, hey, you know what, I'm giving you a demotion, I'm giving Amasa a promotion. But could you imagine the jealousy that was among them? So here it is that David is saying, I want you to go and arrest this guy, get the troops. But notice it said that he delayed. He was given 3 days to get the troops and go and arrest this guy, and he delayed. Why? It doesn't say it in the text, but I'm suggesting that it probably is he is protesting. I'm suggesting that maybe he doesn't really want David to be king. And so he is hoping maybe that this guy Sheba will go out and spread the word and divide the kingdom. Now, in verse 6, it says, and David said to Abishai, now Sheba, the son of Bichri, will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your Lord's servant and pursue him, lest he find for himself a fortified city and escape us. So now we have here this other guy, Abishai. Now who's Abishai? Listen, he is Joab's brother. So now David is saying, Amasa didn't come back. You take the troops. Go get this guy. And so we see now this political propaganda and see why it's so dangerous. Because David said, notice that David recognized that what Sheba is doing is more harmful than what Absalom did. Now, how is that possible? Remember, Absalom wanted to kill David. Sheba, on the other hand, he's going around spreading these lies, this malinformation. So why is it more dangerous? You see, when Absalom revolted against his dad, and he took the kingdom. How did he do it? Listen, through politics. Remember, he went to the gates of the city and he said, hey, you know what? I will be a better king than my dad, David. So he ran really a great campaign, and all of the people, he won their hearts. And so he won the kingdom, and guess what? The whole kingdom was under him. But why is this more dangerous? Listen, what Sheba is doing is dividing the kingdom. He's not uniting them. Oh, you know what? The tribe of Judah, they're not part of us. David is not part of us. He's dividing it. And so we see the danger there. Because why? Well, a kingdom divided cannot stand. But I think there's another reason why it's so dangerous, and it is a spiritual reason. If you think about this in this way, if the northern kingdoms, going back to Sheba's arguments, that David have no part in us, and this is why David put away the women, because all of the women that David had in his life, they were part of the southern kingdom of Judah. You see, he didn't have a wife for Dan and Joseph and the other tribes. He only kept them in Judah. And so they're saying, we don't have no inheritance. There's no chance of the kingdom being part of one of our tribes. But here's why it's so dangerous. Because if he was successful in convincing people that the tribe or the kingdom need to come to the north or have the kings from one of the tribes in the north, who is the descendant of David? Jesus. Who did the prophecy talk about? That the seed, Jesus, will be what? Ruling and reigning in the throne of David. So this is why it's so dangerous, spiritually speaking, that if it goes to the northern tribe, you see the devil, he's behind it trying to destroy what God has prophesied. And so Sheba, his insurrection is to divide the country, to divide the nation. Now, let's look at verse 7. It says, so Joab's men with the Cherethites, the Pelethites, and all of the mighty men went out after him, and they went out of Jerusalem to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. When they were at the large stone which is in Gibeon, Amasa came before them. Now Joab was dressed in battle armor. On it was a belt with a sword fastened in its sheath at his hip. And as he was going forward, it fell out. Then Joab said to Amasa, are you in health, my brother? And Joab took Amasa by the beard and with his right hand to kiss him. But Amasa did not notice the sword that was in Joab's hand. And he struck him with it in the stomach, and his entrails poured out on the ground, and he did not strike him again, thus he died. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri. Meanwhile, one of Joab's men stood near Amasa and said, whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, follow Joab. So we see here that Joab, he took out his political rival, which is his own cousin. He reached out to him, and I mean, what betrayal to hold him by the beard and to stick him with that knife, calling him brother, betrayed with a kiss. It's really scary what politicians will be willing to do. It's disturbing, even in our day and age, to see how far politicians will go to destroy one another. And I find this in both political parties. I find it in both. I remember hearing about, especially during the, campaigns for presidency and other offices. But I remember hearing that, they actually showed a building. It was maybe 4 or 5 stories. And they say this building is dedicated to producing propaganda. In other words, when you ever notice when you get on social media and you see these things that come to your feed about politicians, about different things, who's producing them? We click on them, we like them, we share them, but where did they come from? They come from these political parties that has, again, a whole building, 4 or 5 stories. That's all they do all day is research and dig up dirt and create content so that you could read and think, whoa, this is the truth. You never question it. You never see what the source of these things are. And listen, I fell victim. It was during COVID. I remember seeing one of those, and I thought, oh my goodness. I preached from it from the pulpit. I posted on the church website, and it was false information. So you always have to say, what is the source? I mean, you think about Sheba. What is his deal? Why is he so bitter towards David? Can I submit to you? What is his source? Where does he come from? Listen, he is from the same tribe of King Saul. Do you see the connection? He's bitter because Saul is dead and the kingdom was in Saul, in his tribe. You see, you have to be so careful because when people put things out there, you have to say, what is the source? Where are they coming from? And so we see that this brother, or this guy, killed his own cousin because he's a political rival. I want to point this out too. In light of all what's going on in our country, in all of the protests, some of the things I've just been researching and found that even some of these protesters that's out there are getting paid $85,000 to go and protest, to agitate. And as I saw that, I remember during COVID when we had all the lockdowns, but then they had all these protests out there. And I remember seeing that in the middle of the streets in these cities, big pallets of bricks. Who was putting them there? Again, people are manipulating people to go and burn down cities and start all kinds of fights. Because again, behind the scenes, there is great political power to be gained. And if we're not careful, we're going to fall for it. You see, we have to remove the politics and look for the truth. Don't just buy into whatever you see out there. Make sure you dig and understand what's really happening. Now, verse 12, it says, but Amasa wallowed in his blood in the middle of the highway. And when the men saw that all the people stood still, he moved Amasa from the highway to the field and threw the garment over him. When he saw that everyone who came upon him halted when he was removed from the highway, all the people went on after Joab and pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri. Now, I titled this section here, Political Paralysis. Here it is that this guy had been stabbed. He's laying in the streets. All of the troops, when they come, it's kind of like when you're on I-95, people rub a neck, right? And everything is, it's like they're watching and they're wondering, is this good or is this bad? They don't know what to think about it. Was he your enemy or was he the friend? Was he on our side? And so they're paralyzed. They don't know what to think. They don't know what to believe. And I think we can fall for that in the same way. When you look at the political scene, what's going on? You ever notice, and some of you probably have felt this, you know what, I don't even want to vote anymore. Ever felt that way? You just like voting for the less of two evils. That's how we feel sometimes, because we don't know what to make of what we are seeing out there. And I think this is where these guys are. They came, they stood, they're like, all right, what should I do here? How should I vote? Who should I follow? And notice what Joab said. One of the men in Joab's army. He's like, you know what? Who are you going to choose? Who are you going to follow? Are you going to follow Amasa or the northern kingdom? Or are you going to follow David? And if you're going to follow David, you got to follow Joab. So they have a choice. But this guy comes along, he covers him up, pushes him to the side, and people start going for it again. And I want to say this. You ever notice that there's a lot of news, in the news, there's a lot of information that's being given, and sometimes it's false information, but you don't know it because you get it so quickly. And what the news and the political people are trying to do, they're trying to be the first to capture your attention. No, this is how I want you to look at it. Because once they capture your attention, you're going to see things in that way. But if you step back and you say, wait a minute, before I make any judgment, let me see the big picture. That's what we need to be doing, see the big picture. And that's why this guy jumps in and said, hey, he's dead. Let's move on. Follow David. Follow Joab. Now, in verse 16, he says, then a wise woman cried out from the city, hear, hear, please say to Joab, come nearby, that I may speak with you. Now, I want to title this section here, Political Peacemaker. This woman that's coming, I see her as a picture of the church. The one that has truth, that's bringing truth, that's delivering truth. And she comes and says, where's Joab? We need to talk. Because I guess, by the way, I guess I need to go back because I skipped a verse, right? Yes, let's go back to 14, sorry. And he went through all the tribes of Israel to Abel and Beth Maachah and all the Berites. So they were gathered together and also went after Sheba. Then they came and besieged him in Abel of Beth Maachah. And they cast up a siege mound against the city, and it stood by the rampart. And all the people who were with Joab battered the wall to throw it down. So Joab and his men, they're coming to the city where Sheba is hiding out. This walled city probably even have a moat around it. They can't get in. So they siege the city, and in other words, they surrounded it. No one can go in, no one can come out, no food going in, nothing is going to go in or out of the city. Completely surrounded, and now they're beaten against the wall. They build this rampart, this way to get into the city. They're beaten on it. And this is where in verse 16, this wise woman comes and say, wait a minute, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's sit on a table and negotiate. And she says in verse 17, it says, and when he had come near to her, the woman said, are you Joab? He said, I am. Then she said to him, hear the words of your maidservant, and he answered, I am listening. So she spoke, saying, they used to talk in former times, saying, they shall surely seek guidance at Abel. And so they would end disputes. I am among the peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Why would you swallow up, listen, the inheritance of the Lord? This woman, this wise woman, she knew the answer was not fighting, but diplomacy. She knew that the answer is not rioting, but dialogue. And as she's talking to or reasoning with Joab, are you going to destroy the whole city for one man? Now, verse 20, and Joab answered and said, far be it from me that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not so, but a man from the mountain of Ephraim, Sheba the son of Bichri, by name, has raised his hand against the king, against David. Deliver him only, and I will depart from the city. So the woman said to Joab, watch, his head will be thrown to you over the wall. Then the woman in her wisdom went to all of the people, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. Then he blew a trumpet, and they withdrew from the city, every man to his tent. So Joab returned to the king at Jerusalem. So this woman is a peacemaker. She settled the dispute. I love how she said this city was one of those places that you could come and settle disputes. That you can come and we can talk about it. And how did she settle disputes? Again, she did not follow political parties. She did not follow her feelings. What did she do? She followed the law. You said, the law? Yes, she was following the law. What did the law say? That Sheba is to be put to death. You say, that was law? Yes. Remember, David was king. And what the king says, you got to follow. So, as a wise woman, as a peaceable woman, she followed what the law said. And so she delivered Sheba to Joab. Now, notice it says here, everyone went home, and in verse 23 it says, and Joab was over all the army of Israel. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites. Adoram was in charge of revenue. Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. Sheba was a scribe. Zodok and Abiathar were the priests, and Ira, the Jerethite, was a chief minister under David. So we see here David's cabinet. And notice the different types of people that's in his cabinet. Notice he had the general, Joab. Notice he had a secret service for his body, personal protection, his bodyguards. He had, an IRS agent in there. Notice he had a recorder, a historian. In other words, everything that David did, this guy documented it. And this is important. Why? Because when false accusation comes, here's the truth. But not only did he have a recorder, but he also had a scribe, a press secretary. David, let me tell you how to say what you need to say. Don't just say anything that comes to your mind. So he has a press secretary. He has also a priest for spiritual guidance. And then lastly, he had a chief minister, a chief of staff, to actually help him make some of the decisions. Even though David is king, David still, using wisdom, will say, I need help. Give me some wisdom. Now, I want to close by sharing something that I experienced personally. And I'm sharing this because, again, I want us to be a church. And I want to share something that I don't want to give you the answer. I want you to think about the answer. Because we are the church. Now, some of you, probably, if not all of you, have seen that shooting of that woman, Renee Good. It is a sad thing. Any loss of life is a tragic thing. But I remember seeing the very first picture as I was watching on my computer, and I saw, and I thought, oh my, that's not good. He shot her. And what I saw, this is the image I saw. If you see this image, the guy that was trying to open up the door, that's who I thought that killed her. So that was my first initial response. My second response when I saw another video again, but I saw now the ICE agent that walked across to the front of the car, and he shot her. So I thought, oh, this is a different view. You see, my first reaction was, yeah, he just killed her. Thinking it was the guy standing next to her. The second reaction was like, whoa, this is a little bit more than I thought. Then I had another reaction when I saw the video of the ICE agent walking with his camera from that perspective. I thought, wow, this is another perspective. Then I start hearing people saying, well, he committed murder. I hear other people saying different things. And what I had to do is just pull myself back and say, what's really going on here? Listen, malinformation. You see, everyone is stating the truth. We're all watching the same movie, but we're all coming about with different perspectives. Why? When you go to a court, if you ever was selected for jury duty, what do they instruct you as a juror? They said, we don't want you to make any judgment until you have all of the evidence. All. Why? Because if you make a judgment before, you might miss something that's very important to know the truth. Again, we have to be so careful because all this information that's being put out there is to do something to you. It's to move you from one place to another. Again, what are they trying to do? Gain political power. Now, there's truth there. I have my leaning of where I think it falls. But if you see what's really happening, all of these things are happening to do what? Cause division. Because people in high places want more and more power. And they will use you and I or anyone as political pawns, as I'm hearing, these words that are being used. And I'm hearing, use your body, go sacrifice yourself is what I'm hearing. They don't care about you. They don't care about the people. They care about power. So be very careful, Christian. And it's so sad because, even as a message like this, I will stand up and say, listen, this is what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be peacemakers. Don't get so caught up with the politics that now you're fighting against your brother or sister. It's like, well, I think he's wrong, or I think he's right. And now we're fighting instead of being like this wise woman and says, I know all of you are hurting. There are people that are hurting on both sides, but let's bring them to the table and share them, listen, the truth. And what is the truth? The good news. The gospel. Because when you have Christ, he clears out all of that politics. He removes all of that, and then you see the truth. And that's what we need to come down to. We need to get to the truth and stop getting caught up with the politics. And I'll leave you with this last thing. When you're part of a political party, it blinds you to the sin of the party. Instead of saying, this is the truth, you're going to say, well, that's not working in our favor, so therefore, and you try to justify it. Listen, don't do that. If someone on the left is doing something good, praise them for it. If they're doing something bad, call them out for it. If somebody's on the right, they're doing something good, praise them for it. But if they're doing something bad, call them out for it. But don't cover the sin of your party so that you can be right. I want to remind you, we are Christians. Our kingdom is in heaven. I praise God for this country. I love being an American. I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, but my home is still heaven. And I don't want anyone to divide me or try to get me to look at a certain person, look at people in a certain way, blacks or white, liberals and conservative. I am a Christian. I happen to be black, but that doesn't matter. I don't play the identity politics. I'm a Christian. I look for truth. And I have to be in alignment with God's word. And that's how I see things. So I'm saying this to say, church, let's not get caught up. Be a peacemaker. Because Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. But when you get caught up in the politics, instead of helping people, you're now fighting against them, and they will never see the truth. And so that's what we're called to do. Be like that woman. Be that wise woman. Be that peaceable woman. Amen.